Oda Nobunaga was one of the most famous Japanese people of all time. He was born in 1534. Before he was 7, he was already made Lord of the Nagoya Castle, probably the only thing in his life he didn't have to do a lot for. Well, maybe keeping his dad happy by not shitting his pants. Despite him being the eldest legitimate son, his succession to his father's leadership to the Oda clan was not guaranteed, partially to his own misconduct, by running and wrestling around with peasant boys and playing with hawks and stuff, if you want to call that misconduct. In the next decade, his succession was threatened by multiple external enemies, while he was also trying to consolidate his position by fighting against his 2 brothers and an uncle, who, after capture, committed suicide, while one of his brothers was later killed by Nobunaga. If you think you have bad family relations, I'm glad to give you some perspective. At this point, Oda Nobunaga was in complete control of his own clan and a joined territory. When Imagawa Yoshimoto, one of the most powerful daimyos in all of Japan, was planning to invade Kyoto to make himself shogun, or something close to that, Oda knew that Yoshimoto's army would be crossing the Oda province of Owari and probably overthrow him as well. Knowing he would be outnumbered 12-1, Oda Nobunaga took his 2,000 troops to the valley where Yoshimoto's 25,000 troops set up camp. Oda Nobunaga left a dummy camp with lots of flags near a temple for the enemy to be spotted, and maneuvered his main force through dangerous terrain exposed to ambush just in order to get to the enemy's flanks. While being under the impression the enemy was not yet in sight, mainly because of his scout reports of the dummy camp, Imagawa Yoshimoto went on to celebration mode, with back-to-back drinks for all his men combined with ritual displays of cut-off heads taken from previous defeated enemies. Casual Friday night out-of-town stuff. Not knowing his enemy was practically behind the barrels of sake, turning every skilled army warrior into a vomiting, drooling retard, bad luck was turning into all-out disaster, with heavy rain forcing all of his men into their tents, with loud thunderstorms covering Oda Nobunaga's approach. With the complete element of surprise, Oda's forces ambushed and completely slaughtered Yoshimoto's troops, killing Yoshimoto in the process. The story of his massive military success spread like wildfire through Japan, and after the battle, Oda Nobunaga was considered to be the most powerful daimyo in all of Japan. Was that good enough? Nah. And Oda Nobunaga went on his own military adventure trip towards Kyoto years later, with the very original idea of overthrowing the shogun Ashikaga Yoshiteru. But he was already slaughtered and replaced by his cousin Ashikaga Yoshihide. Yes, yet another nice Japanese family matter being sorted out accordingly. Over a long period, the daimyos were getting more powerful, up to a point where the shogun was nothing more than just a puppet instructed by the daimyos, practically someone's bitch wearing an oversized bathrobe and a weird hat. Therefore, it would just be a matter of time before the new shogun position would be threatened once again by, another family member. The younger brother of the 13th shogun, Ashikaga Yoshiaki, was apparently not so cool with the fact that they killed his older brother for the sole reason his cousin is into promotions and stuff. For that reason, Yoshiaki turned to Nobunaga for help, who was more than willing to assist, since he was planning to take the political control from Ashikaga anyway. Their biggest challenge was to fight the Rakaku clan. After defeating this clan, multiple other clans were not going to stop Oda Nobunaga from installing Yoshiaki as the new shogun. At this point, it comes to no one's surprise that the alliance between Nobunaga and the new shogun was only going to last a few years. During this time, many other wars were fought, with multiple clans throughout Japan. Basically, every daimyo outside of the shogun's territorial control, and even a few within it, saw Nobunaga as a threat. When Nobunaga pressed Yoshiaki to invite all the local daimyos to a delightful banquet, Asakura Yoshikage, the head of the Asakura clan, said thanks but no thanks, to which Nobunaga raised an army to prepare an attack and confront the evil banquet-cancelling demon. With Nobunaga moving his troops into Asakura clan territory and besieging Kanagasaki Castle, he was underestimating the effect of his dominant power on other clans in the region. The Azai-Asakura alliance was forged. Together, they bullied back Oda Nobunaga out of the Kanagasaki region. Despite his retreat, Nobunaga was still messing around in the region and was besieging other castles. The Azai-Asakura forces met Nobunaga at the banks of the Anagawa River, where they decided to fight a proper battle in the shallow waters of the river, which probably looked very cool. Props for the location scout. The forces of the Azai-Asakura alliance lost the battle and eventually the war, forcing the leaders of the clan to commit suicide. Between all these bloody battles, Nobunaga was also dealing with the Iko-Iki movement. Iko-Iki was a cult association centered around the Jodo Shinshu sect of Buddhism. Simply said, they did not like the whole samurai killing everyone and burning everything to the ground vibe. Considering Nobunaga's position on this, you can probably see where this is going. Yep, he wanted to kill every one of them and burn everything to the ground accordingly. Not a sophisticated man. What followed were a series of battles, one of which was fought on a temple hill, battling a horde of monks, after which Nobunaga killed all the monks, including all the women and children. The whole mountainside was burned to the ground, another promise well kept. The Nagashima fortresses were another strong point which was attacked multiple times by Nobunaga's forces. After 2 failed attempts, another attack was carried out and eventually the entire complex was surrounded. Every building was set on fire with tens of thousands of defenders still in it. Simultaneously, Nobunaga had been besieging the Ikoiki main stronghold at Ishiyama Honganji. He placed a naval blockade to cut the fortress from receiving any supplies. This siege lasted for years, and eventually the garrison was forced to surrender. Surprisingly, their lives were spared. They just had to watch their fortress being burned to the ground and were kindly requested to fuck off and not look back. That was basically the end for the Ikoiki as a military force. After a few years of turmoil, the shogun Yoshiaki was not pleased with his position and the disbalance in power. He tried to plot against Nobunaga, aiding with several other daimyo Oda haters to help overthrow him. This all led to nothing, with Nobunaga seeing the plotting plans from miles away. He just simply cancel cultured the shit out of the entire shogunate ruling system, including Yoshiaki himself, who was sent off with the advice he should consider a career switch and do something with Buddhism and stuff. After the Ashikaga shogunate reign came to an end, the authority of the imperial court of Emperor Ogibachi also began to fall. Authority was re-established when Nobunaga showed support for the emperor. He just had to give Nobunaga all kinds of fancy official titles to make him look awesome. Now, with a whole bunch of very official and very cool-sounding names in his pocket, Nobunaga went off to do what Nobunaga does best: kill and destroy all that is visible to the human eye. But not before he builds a castle on a hill to defend Kyoto, because he had time to build a castle, and because having fancy names means jack shit if you conquer stuff only for other people to take it back the moment you've turned around. Now the castle building thing is ticked off, and he can go back to the murder and or destroy part. Of course, it would not be too long before he bumped into his next adversary. Uesugi Kenshin was a guy messing around in the Noto province, one of Oda's client states. Kenshin forced a coup d'etat by an incursion group to overthrow Hatakeyama Yoshinori. Nobunaga did not like that and sent out an army to counter the attack. What followed was the Battle of Tedoregawa, taking place on the riverbanks of the Todori River. Kenshin placed his troops in a way that Nobunaga's forces moved in for a frontal assault, after which Kenshin opened the river's floodgates, making their arquebus and cannon weaponries ineffective. Kenshin now ordered a close-quarter counterattack, to which Oda's forces were poorly equipped. With over 1,000 men lost, Nobunaga withdrew, and the battle was won by Kenshin's forces. This victory could have led to a massive power shift, was it not for Kenshin to die a year later by an unknown disease. Anticlimax or what? Now, with his most recent victory on the Takeda clan, with occasional suicides included, Oda Nobunaga was at the height of his power. One night, Nobunaga was chilling in the Honnoji temple, when Akashi Mitsuhide, one of Oda's samurais, decides to turn on him and charge the temple, which was defended by only 30 men. The defenders were quickly overwhelmed in numbers, and Nobunaga himself retreated to the inner rooms of the temple. Being very aware of the pickle he was in, Nobunaga ordered the temple to be burned down to prevent his body, and in particular his head, to be used as a trophy. Before succumbing to the flames, Oda Nobunaga committed ritual suicide, screaming out his final words: "Don't let them come in." Sad example of final wishes turning into buggers.